Hey everybody, welcome to episode 20 of Around the Verse. I'm Sandy Gardner.
And I'm Ben Lesnick, and the big news is that Sandy's back.
Sandy is back after a very long flight from Australia, and I found it hard to get up this morning, so it's a bit of a struggle. I'm getting there. It's 2 days of jet lag, I think.
Well, tell us about the event. How did Australia respond to Star Citizen?
Oh, the Aussies were actually very friendly towards me, but they kept calling me American. I was trying really hard to do my Aussie accent, but then again, I wasn't drinking beer. I was drinking water, and somebody bought Maltesers, and I ate all of those. I don't think they're Australian though, but the fans were awesome. The fan event was great that we had at the Citizen Bar. We had all the Osmonauts there, and we had some people who had amazing costumes. I don't know if they actually lived in Melbourne, but those costumes were amazing.
I saw some of the RSI flight suit guy. That was really cool.
Yeah, that guy's name was Chris. I think he does actual real props, and it showed. So he showed us up. So we had him on stage, as you may or may not have seen from the live stream. And
I think the last part of the live stream we saw was they were pointing a gun at you and you were getting down on the ground, and then it cut out. Yeah,
okay. It didn't get weird from there. It hopefully got better if you have watched it since then.
It is available at our YouTube, and it's on the RSI site right now if you'd like to check out the full PAX presentation.
It is, and can you believe we're 20 episodes deep?
That's incredible, and we've gotten slightly better.
I hope we've gotten better. It's hard because every week I go, you know what? I'm going to read this text beforehand. I'm going to be prepared, and it just doesn't happen. I was in a meeting until 5 minutes ago, and then I'm like, quick, let me do my makeup. And Ben sits here going, yeah, okay, right. I'm like, I'm almost done, I promise.
Perfect. That was a perfect Ben impression.
Was it? Oh gosh, I know I'm not very good at that. Okay, $61 million.
61. That's incredible. I can't believe that we have hit this level.
I know, Chris didn't even realize, because I said, hey, did we do the $61 million letter? He said, what $61 million letter? We did the $60 million letter. I said, yeah, I think we hit 61.
Chris may be a little bit jet lagged.
Yeah, I think so.
The relatively new concept of crowdfunding has soared to lofty new heights in recent years. In 2013 alone, it's estimated to have raised more than $5 billion globally. If you haven't heard of it yet, crowdfunding is the practice of supporting a project or venture through financial contributions from large numbers of people, usually through the internet. Video game designers have been quick to take advantage of this business model, and among the most successful of those is Chris Roberts. Well, Chris is currently visiting Australia, and he's with me tonight in the studio. Chris, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, I'm more than happy to be here. It's
now,
great.
I should just mention that video was actually made 2 years ago. Technology has improved so much since then. Now, when you made that video, you were hoping to reach a goal of $20 million or $23 million initially. But then you wouldn't have to go to outside contractors.
Yeah, well, actually, I was originally hoping to do between $2 and $4 million on crowdfunding,
right,
just to prove to private investors that there was a viable game there. And I thought I'd need about between 14 and 20 million to make the game. So I thought, okay, well, if I can raise 4 million with crowdfunding, then I could raise the rest with private investment. And the response was amazing. So we already did way more than 4 in the initial period, and we've continued to do that. So there was a certain point where you said, well, we don't need outside investors, we can just make it with the backing of the crowd. And so that's what we've been doing, and I'm really thankful to everyone that's been able to let us do that.
What does influence someone to get behind a crowdfunding project? You look on the crowdfunding sites and some are struggling to raise a couple of $1,000s, yours $60 million. What is it that's made yours so successful? And does it in a way speak of what people want for their own lives? Immerse yourself in a fantasy world, can contribute towards that. I want that to be made. Donate to someone trying to do a photography degree, a little bit more distant from what I understand.
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard for me to speak for everyone else. I mean, my guess is in general, because I also back a lot of crowdfunded projects myself, it's always an emotional thing. So for me, it's something that I emotionally connect to, and I go, yeah, I really... Yes, I want to see that. And so it's an emotionally driven response, I would say. And I would say that in the case of Star Citizen, it's something that a lot of gamers wanted, because this is a style of game that hasn't been around for quite a while. It used to be very popular back in the 90s when I was making games such as Wing Commander, which was quite well known back there. And that hasn't been around for a while. Plus, we're very squarely making a game for the PC, which for a while has been not very well supported for games. So people focus on console games but not PC, and so I think there's a lot of PC gamers that said, I want a game made just for my platform, and I miss science fiction games, and I want this big world I can adventure around in. And so all those things sort of created a perfect storm to create the kind of response that we had for Star Citizen.
I should also point out that although you're a game developer and a good businessman, this has been your passion. 8 years old, you were influenced by Star Wars. Your mixed accent, you grew up in Manchester, you live in the US. What is it about this world that you feel is so important to be able to share with other people?
It's hard to say. I've always loved escapism, so I've loved other worlds. I mean, when I grew up, I loved, reading Tolkien and reading Heinlein and Asimov, and so going to different places. And I love, I spent a bunch of time in the film business, and creating worlds is something that I'm really into. I don't know, maybe because I grew up in Manchester and the weather's really miserable and it's rainy, so you tend to be inside dreaming of other things. But so I've sort of made my career about sort of creating other worlds, and so I think Star Citizen is sort of the ultimate version of that, because it's creating this world, this universe on a level that I haven't had the ability to create previously, because I didn't either have the resources or the technology wasn't there, and that's great.
And when you go around the world, you're actually recognised. People follow you around. They come together and gather to see you. You've got your own Wikipedia page, so you're kind of dissing that model of computer gamer who sits inside all the time and doesn't socialise. What is it about you as a person that you think attracts other people to your vision?
I'm not very good at answering questions about myself. I mean, I'm definitely not George Clooney in terms of getting anything like that. But no, I think people, if there's something that they really relate to. I mean, like for me, I don't get all starry-eyed about actors, but being in the film business, when meeting James Cameron or Steven Spielberg, that for me were my moments when I sort of got all sort of starry-eyed, because creating a world of directing stuff was something that I really responded to. So I think that maybe people that play games, I mean, I never realized it until I actually got to do Star Citizen, because in the past I made a lot of successful games, but it was the old way where it would get put in a box, go into a computer store, and someone would buy it and play it, and I would know that a lot of people were playing it because we'd sell a lot of units, and I would see good reviews in magazines or on TV programs, but I didn't really connect to the people playing it. But with doing Star Citizen, because we're going directly to the gamers that are giving the money for this game, I'm actually interacting with a lot of people that say maybe played some of my games in the past, and I hear all these stories that I never would have guessed. They're like, oh yeah, I became a pilot because I was playing Wing Commander all these years ago, or
yeah, right.
I went into NASA because I started dreaming about space playing Wing Commander, and I started to realize, wow, so some of the stuff I did in games affected what people did when they were growing up, in the same way that maybe I was affected by Star Wars and what George Lucas was doing when he was making a film, and I think that's just sort of the evolution of gaming, and I think maybe that's what the few people that do recognize me, they probably go, okay, I really played your game a while ago and I really liked it and it said something to me, and so yeah, thanks for doing that.
Well, Chris Roberts, $60 million now. I have no doubts it's probably going to hit $100 million at some point. So when that happens, check in with us, and I'd love to see where the game's going. Thanks so much for dropping in.
I'd be happy to back you for $100 million.
See you.
But by the time you all see this, hopefully the 61 letter will be posted, along with the details of the poll winner, which is the third starter ship, I believe.
Oh, cool.
So backers will be able to have another option for how to start Star Citizen. It'll give another low-priced extra ship. We're really looking forward to building that one. And
when are we having our fly-off? Because it's actually really fun right now. It is. It's really good fun. I was in with Dave Haddock and William, and we were flying around. It's actually quite fun.
We really need to take advantage of Arena Commander before they break it again, I guess. Right. So this weekend,
right?
Let's do
exactly.
it.
I don't know why I'm saying it's fun, like I'm surprised, but genuinely it's fun.
I think when you've seen Star Citizen as broken as we have,
that's probably. I'm always expecting the worst, and so. Yeah.
So it's cool when it comes together.
True. And Veterans Day.
Yes, it's not Veterans Day when you are seeing this, but it is when we're recording it. So we just wanted to take a moment to thank all our veterans out there. It's Veterans Day in the United States and Remembrance Day in some other countries. It's been an absolute privilege to get to meet veterans from around the world through Star Citizen. Something about the game seems to attract people who have served their countries, and it's been really cool.
M50.
We've had the M50 unlocked for a week now, just letting players test racing and other modes with it, seeing how it interacts when everyone in the game that's to play the same super fast racing ship, and we've gotten some interesting feedback. We will be building into future balancing updates. You guys have about 24 hours of M50 ownership left if you want to try it out. It ends Friday.
Do you have one?
I have an M50, so I didn't need the free one. It's a cool little ship.
I want to race you in my Cutlass. That's not really very fair.
I think that would not be a fair race.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, 315 Arena Commander tomorrow.
We will be putting the Origin 315 variant in Arena Commander tomorrow, part of our sort of spinning up the process for getting variants into the game. You saw the 325 recently. We're going to do the 315 tomorrow, and a bunch more ships before the end of the year.
And I think it happened while I was away. Eric is no longer with us.
Yes, Eric Wingman Peterson, who kind of premiered the idea for this show, has left Cloud Imperium Games. I worked under Eric for a year in Austin. It was a really good time. He's a really good guy. I learned a lot from that. It was great writing for Wingman's Hangar, appearing in for forum feedback. We're gonna miss Eric.
Yeah, I miss his enthusiasm and excitement for everything. So he was missed and he will be missed, and we wish him well in his new endeavors.
Absolutely. And he said he's going to keep stopping by the forums, keeping us updated, so he'll always be with us in that sense.
And now it's time for news from around the verse.
Let's do this module by module, starting with Arena Commander.
In the UK, the team has taken multiple passes at game balance among all modes.
You probably noticed there were some changes with the balancing with the last patch, and these were designed for the dogfighting modes, but they also impacted racing. That's one of the reasons we unlocked the M50, to see how it behaved with the changes. So we're going to use that feedback to make some changes to game balance in general for upcoming patches.
LA has been investigating server optimizations with the Austin team.
That's basically what it sounds like. We are
exciting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that is exactly all we need to say about that.
I'm just gonna look at my script and avoid eye contact.
LA has been finishing up the 315 implementation and testing.
As we said, the 315 will be available in the game, flyable, starting tomorrow. I should also note that's if everything goes as planned. We think we have a good patch. As of Tuesday when we're recording this, it's always possible that something will happen between now and then. If it does, we'll let you know on the forums.
Persistent Universe. CIG Austin has created the design for jump point scanning and navigation.
In fact, I have it on good authority that in the very near future, people are going to see their first art of a jump point.
Ooh. Forrest was telling me he really wanted to create a black hole from Interstellar.
I think everybody has Interstellar on the brain right now.
I know, right?
In fact, I think it was Friday night. I guess everybody went to see it, and then I saw my inbox like flood with, "Hey, there's a cool sequence. We can use this for look dev."
Yeah, they got a bit excited about that here. Okay, behavior. Rebel and York and Arrowview hangars have been set up for the preliminary room system.
So expect to start seeing rooms added to your hangars in future patches. One of these will be a simulator room. We're going to move all the Arena Commander ships into like pods, so they're separate from the ships you bought for the Persistent Universe.
I love the Rebel and York hangar. That's my favorite.
I like the basic hangar. Reminds me of the original Alien.
CIG Austin created the inventory for the first shop in game.
You guys saw some of the shops in the Persistent Universe demo. Now you can actually go up to them and buy things. It's really cool seeing the game come together in a way that, you know, it's been all sorts of broken pieces for so long, and now there's really a game there.
Yeah, I just actually had an event meeting this morning, and we've got some exciting stuff for next year with what is coming online and being released. So, Squadron 42, CIG UK 0G traversal set piece code has started.
That's going to tie in the Squadron 42 storyline with the mechanics we're creating for the FPS, where you get out of your ship, move around for various reasons, boarding, zero-G combat, all sorts of cool stuff.
Moon Collider, continued iteration on FPS AI behavior.
The guys at Moon Collider in Edinburgh are coming with kind of the routines for how the FPS background characters will respond, how the AI opponents, it's good stuff.
CIG UK, modular building layout designed for Mission 7.
As you know, we're building all sorts of modular systems for the Persistent Universe, modular ships, modular hangars. It's also important for the Squadron 42 single-player missions, and you guys will see why in the near future.
Ships. CIG UK, the Starfarer is getting further and further along in the concept phase.
They have the white boxes a lot of the interiors, and if you check out later in this episode, we may have a little piece of that to show off.
CIG-LA, I know we've been teasing it, and we're honing in on the design of the Carrack for unveiling at a redacted date.
It's soon. Carrack is soon.
CIG UK completed component layout pass for the Avenger.
A lot of people have been asking about the Avenger lately, so let me clear this up. We are now working to get the base model of the Avenger flight ready for Arena Commander 1.0, hopefully before the end of the year. We are also working on variants for the Avenger, which will not premiere until early 2015.
CIG-LA are finishing damage states and LODs for the 315P.
That we're looking forward to getting the 315P out into players' hands, seeing what needs to be changed once it's out there and flying.
FPS module, Ilphonic have hooked up first pass of prone animation.
So expect to see people lying on the floor. Actually, what the coolest thing about that is we now have a FPS module section of News from Around the Verse, since Ilphonic has revealed themselves as the former redacted.
Doesn't that mean lying on the floor face down?
Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
I think you did some of the mocap for that, didn't you?
I did. I was thinking, okay. Yeah, I did do some of the mocap for that.
So they're literally putting Sandy into the game, right?
I know, yeah. The FPS module drill level breach assault has been completed.
Breach Assault, that's the name James kept pushing. He must have snuck that in there.
What is that?
It's one of our game modes. You know how Arena Commander has like the racing mode and the capture the core mode. FPS module will have a bunch of different modes as well, and Breach Assault is kind of the boarding mode.
And finally, they're putting together a list of animations needed for the next mocap shoot.
Yeah, one question we get a lot is, like, why isn't the scythe in the hangar? It's in the game. Why isn't it in the hangar? It's because we have to go and record a lot of specialty animations anytime we add a segment like that. So a lot of the production planning for any particular module is sitting down and saying, okay, we need a guy to stand like this, and we need one who moves like this, and so on, which they're doing for some of the more advanced FPS features at the moment.
And I am not doing that.
Good.
Yeah.
It seemed
No.
like quite a chore last time.
No, not happening. Let's go over to Will for this week's MVP.
Take it away, Will.
Hey everybody, I'm lead moderator Will here to bring you this week's MVP. This week's MVP goes to Roguefire for his thread and video called Hype Citizen. Take a look. So thank you very much, Roguefire. You're this week's MVP.
Thanks, Will.
Let's go over to Mark for this episode of Bug Smashers.
What is he doing? Hey everyone, welcome back to Dancing with the Bugs. Tonight, one unlucky bug will be obliterated. Bug Smashers! Hey everyone, today's bug is to deal with the radar signature system, and I'm going to show you what we currently have. So right now, as you're playing the game, if you are going around and you're hiding behind like an asteroid, in this case my little block layer, you could still see enemies behind. So there's my enemy, and he's behind this object, I can still see him. We don't want that. So I'm going to turn off the old feature and show you what our new feature is. As you can see, the guy vanishes when you go behind. Whee! And that's a little bit of a thing that we're trying out in Arena Commander 1. What I also want to show you is all the fun little signature stuff that we're currently debugging. It's messing with my head, man. So here's the scythe, and let me move this guy down. On the left is the infrared signature, in the middle is the magnetic signature, and on the right is the cross section. And one of the things that we fixed in Arena Commander 1 is debugging and emitting these signatures. So not only you can't see things behind stuff, but at least for infrared and electromagnetic, no matter how you look at the entity, it will emit that, whatever value it is, based on the power plant usage or even the thruster usage. But for cross-section, which is this guy right here, it will actually change depending upon how you look at the object. So if you are, I need a little cup. So here we go. So if you're looking at the ship directly dead on here, you're gonna have a higher cross-section than if you're looking at the guy this way. So if you want to sneak up on some guy, come up this way and you won't see him as much. But if you're flattened out, you're going to have a higher cross-section. Let me show you some of the code we did to fix that stuff up. So this is our brand new signature class, which handles everything you want for a given signature. In case for the cross-section, it will actually do some calculations depending upon how you're looking at it. And since we want this to happen very quickly, we only calculate the signatures once per frame, and only if you request a signature. So that way, if we have 100 things that all have signatures, but our radar only detects within the sphere, we won't ask everything what it is, we'll only ask what we want, and thus calculating what it is per frame. So we have this nice little manager that goes around and says, hey, thruster, what IR are you emitting? I'm going to get all that, add it together, and store it in. And it does that for the IR, the cross-section, and the EM. And that's what you can see here. And if you look at the infrared on the left, you can see all the things that are emitting the infrared, and then the grand total, which is 360 about. And if the scythe were to move, it would increase that. The next thing that we did to bump up performance and make sure you don't see things is the radar system. This thing will basically periodically look for things that are within your radar range, and then once in a while it'll send out a trace to see if you are in fact seeing this thing. We don't want to send out a lot of traces, so actually implement a priority queue, which will, every frame, we will send out 8 rays and see if something's detected. If it is, then cool, we're visible. If it hits something else, like an asteroid, oh my gosh, we're not detectable. I can't, it's not clicking into the head. I know. What's my line, Dan? No one knows my line. If I turned off my signal debugging and turn on my radar debugging, there we go. This shows me what my actual radar is perceiving. On the left, it's what we're processed, and on the right is the raw value. And we're using a signal-to-noise ratio, so that's why the values are a little bit smaller. As you can see, the visibility is set to 0, and then as soon as I move out of the way of this block, it pops into view. I leave it, and it's invisible. Then it pops in. There is a frame or 2 delay because we're not processing everything on the same frame just to make everything speedy, but it won't be that bad. I mean, we do want a sense of deterioration as well. That is the fun little class. Now the next thing we have a proxy for the entities, and what this does is for every single entity we attach this proxy, and then it can be shown onto the radar. So now we could have everything we want to have a signal will have and emit a signal. So now we could have asteroids emitting cross-section. We could have radio stations, or that big gigantic station in the middle of the deathmatch maps emitting IR, radio, or whatever signatures. And soon designers will be able to use this to emit noise spheres. So then what we'll do with that is, if we have a sphere and we have two objects between a sphere, you may not be able to detect the two because of the high interference. And that is going to be quite cool. So that's something we'll be having for Arena Commander 1 as well. So there you see it. We have some major signature improvements for Arena Commander 1, and I hope you guys enjoy it, and see you next time. Woo! So this week was more of a demonstration of what we wanted to fix for Arena Commander 1. For the signature system, we wanted to make sure that if you're behind an asteroid, you cannot be detected. And then we also wanted to do some things with the cross-section. So depending upon how you're looking at it, if you're detecting this ship this way, you're going to have a smaller cross-section than if you detect it this way. And that's going to be some interesting gameplay mechanics with that. Maybe you could stealth up on a guy closing in, but then all of a sudden if you go like this, he detects you. So we're trying out some new things with some old, stuff that we've had for a while, but we haven't had time to flush it out. And that's what we're doing for Arena Commander 1. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you next week. Tune in next week as we tune in next week as we tune in next week for tune in next week tune God. All right. Tune in next week for a very special wedding of Keeping Up with That. Tune in next week for a very special wedding with
Tune in next week for a very special wedding edition of the Bug Smashians.
Thanks, Mark.
Now over to James, who is interviewing our new production coordinator, Darian Vorlik.
Thanks, boss. I'm here with Darian Vorlik. Darian, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you.
How's it like starting over at Cloud Imperium Games?
It's been kind of an eye-opening experience. Been in the industry for about 10 years now, and I don't think I've ever worked at a company like this before.
I don't imagine anyone has. Are you enjoying it so far, though?
I wouldn't trade for anything. Chris Roberts has always been a childhood hero of mine ever since Wing Commander when I was 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade. Kind of gives away my age there. So when I heard the opportunity that he's working on a new space game, I jumped at the chance.
Yeah, me and Ben talk about all the time how, we'll never have a job like this ever again. Through all the good times and bad times, it's nothing like this will ever exist, so we should really enjoy it.
Well, it's an extra odd dichotomy for me because I was a biomedical engineering major. I had aspirations of becoming a surgeon, and then with further aspirations of becoming a serial killer profiler for the FBI.
That's kind of a shift.
Well, the ironic part is everybody in my family of my generation, we were all biology majors. All aspirations of med school, we're all in the video game industry.
Nice. It's like a family business now.
Pretty much. Disappointed parents, but now they see we can make a living off of it.
Yeah.
They're okay with it now.
You should have seen my mom when I said, no, I'm not going to go to law school. I'm going to go make video games. She was pretty pissed.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you want to get some questions?
Absolutely.
All right. First question comes from Starkiller. How different is it to manage a project in CIG, as they have a way more open policy than, let's say, Blizzard? Do you prefer the former or the latter, and why?
Well, Starkiller, there are pros and cons to both. Clearly, both ways of doing things have its benefits and, loath to say, consequences, but
differences.
There are differences.
There's some things that are harder.
So, as far as being open and transparent, it makes expectations a lot clearer. Whereas if you're in a less transparent environment, when you have a revelation of a new feature, it's enjoyable to see the fans' faces because it was something completely unexpected.
Yeah.
But when you have something that's transparent, such as Star Citizen, seeing the involvement of the players, the backers, having players send us boxes of bagels for breakfast.
Yeah.
You'd never see that at almost any other gaming company.
Well, I'm pretty sure. Come on, you tell me you never got bagels?
Not with the level of openness.
These are open bagels?
Yeah, you cut them in half. Seeing how many backers take tours. Just look at yesterday. We had a police officer who works nearby, came knocking on the door, wanted a tour because he was one of the backers. First of all, we thought someone was getting arrested or he's serving a subpoena or something. He's like, no, I'm just one of the backers. I just want to take a tour.
Yeah, I expected Forrest to jump the fence and take off. So.
It's inspiring. It makes you proud of what you're working on. So I don't think there's one that I choose over the other. It's more of which one appeals to a certain personality type. It also depends on the kind of game that you're working on. Something that's got this much fan input and backer input, I think the nature of how the development process is going is much more, I guess, revelatory, if that's a real word. It's easier to get feedback on which way the game is going because there's much more of a community input. So that kind of tactile feedback is incredibly useful, especially when you're trying to make a game that's catering towards, whether it's a large demographic or a small demographic. Getting that kind of clear input, I've always found that to be valuable. I've been on the community team at other companies before, some that are not transparent and some that are. So being able to interact with the crowd, I think, has a huge amount of benefits. I mean, even when we were at CitizenCon, just having players come up to me and having backers come up to me. I'd only been with the company for a week at that point, asking questions, wanting to give us input, asking for my phone number to go to dinner and hang out. Like that blew me away, that kind of passion. So, I don't think there's one that's better than the other. I think they both have their benefits. So, and I'm glad that Star Citizen is working on that, or it has that kind of transparency, because it just makes it much more that much more enjoyable to work on.
Yeah, it's not, this one's better, this one's better or worse. It's just a difference. Different projects require or necessitate different structures, and this one benefits immensely from the open structure, but other games may not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So next question comes from Minius. How do you coordinate your team so that you ensure that your scheduling timeline is followed? Do you have a sort of pipeline?
Yeah, it's a very large lead pipe that I hit them with if they don't follow a schedule. As far as how do I handle scheduling our programmers and developers, one of the features that I'm a producer on is Arena Commander. As a producer, I'm not a programmer, though I understand what some of the things that they're working on. I'm not an artist. I tried to draw something in 3D Studio Max one time and it came out looking like a Salvador Dali painting.
Nice.
What we do is we keep people on track. We're the ones who make things happen. So ultimately, the best way to keep them on track is by making sure that we're utilizing their talents to the best of their ability in a direction that is both beneficial to what they want to work on, at the same time furthering the game's goals. For example, if we have one artist who is incredibly talented at drawing a particular type of landing gear, if we realize that he's also someone working on another aspect, and that aspect is due within the next first couple days, but he really wants to work on that landing gear, there may be some times where I need to wave a carrot, like, look, if you finish this piece tomorrow, I'll give you some time to work on that landing gear. But I need you to allocate at least 4 or 6 hours of your time before we get to that. Sometimes it may require a lead pipe. Sometimes it may require just a box of donuts. That's why I have a bag of candy right outside my desk.
You do. That's true.
Motivation comes in different forms. If there's a particular pipeline, if you're referring to different project management methodologies, one of the most common ones that are mentioned in the gaming industry, especially among production, is Agile or Scrum. Those are just tools, and I'm going to quote some of the producers that I've learned from. Those are tools in a tool belt. They don't always apply to the same situation over and over and over again. Sometimes you may need to use one methodology. Sometimes you may need to use another. I'm going to say what I called the DWIT method, DWIT, do whatever it takes. My kind of crowning moment in understanding production is when I go up to a developer and say, hey, how do you guys keep track of this, and this? And they look at me with this blank stare going, and I realize I have no one else to turn to for that information. It's my job to give them that information. If I want that information, I have to find it somehow. And whether it's through one project management methodology or another, I've got to make it happen. The nice thing about working here is that those hierarchies aren't necessarily set in stone. One day I may be acting as a production assistant or production coordinator. The next day I may be taking charge of a feature from the ground up, such as different ship components or different features going into Arena Commander. There's always flexibility in what my day-to-day tasks are like, but at the same time, I'm going to quote Alex Mayberry on this, a good producer is always on the verge of being overwhelmed. Tiptoeing that line while maintaining your stuff shows that you're doing something right. So to kind of summarize it, do whatever it takes.
Star Citizen is easily one of the most ambitious projects in the industry at this moment. With all the new alpha content scheduled for implementation in 2015, what are going to be your biggest challenges?
Well, 56, I think one of the biggest expectations is actually ours. We have great expectations for this project, and no one else wants to see this succeed more than we do.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I think meeting our expectations is going to be the biggest challenge. Making sure we're matching Chris's vision in what he wants his game to develop into. We've got a lot of talented people here, some of the most talented people that I've ever seen in the industry. Having them all come together and putting this massive ideas into a solid product that has driven so many of our backers so passionately, it's hard not to get caught up in that frenzy. I think the biggest challenge, at least for me, is how do I exceed my own expectations on what I want this to become? Because if it doesn't meet our expectations, how do we expect it to meet our fans' expectations? If we're disappointed in something, we don't want to release that. We want something that we're proud of to be out there for our players. If we're not proud of it, we shouldn't be releasing it.
All right. I agree.
I do too.
Next question comes from Harlot. How does fan feedback and open development factor into coordination of a project like Star Citizen? Well, to be fair, this is kind of the first time this has ever happened. So far, what have you seen the differences are?
There's a lot more community involvement, whether it's ship designing competitions or just the amount of people who come by, whether it's to give us input or give us ideas. Seeing that kind of openness, it gives us different perspective on, it may even present an idea that we never thought of in the first place. We have, like I said, we have a lot of talented individuals, but we're so hyper-focused on certain aspects of the game, I don't want to see it keeps us narrow-minded, not even close to that. But it's always good to see other perspectives. Ultimately, it'd be great to have our players' visions align with our visions align, and both of us agreeing that this is the direction we want the game to go. And I think by getting that kind of community feedback, that puts us at least on the right track to reach that milestone.
What do you think about working without a publisher? What are the pros and cons of each method?
Working without a publisher is strangely liberating in some degrees because we're responsible for our own selves. That gives us a certain level of freedom on pursuing what we want rather than what another organization wants.
What market research shows.
The fortunate part of that is with the other companies that I've worked at, even though we've had a publisher in the past, there was still a certain level of autonomy that was granted to us. So working without a publisher, at least from the mentality perspective, it's not too different.
Especially for you, right? Knowing where you came from.
Right.
Yeah.
And a certain level of involvement is expected, and not only expected, but it's promoted. So hearing our ideas on how to improve the game. So when you don't have a publisher, there's a certain level of freedom for you to pursue an idea and see what the where that evolution of that idea takes you. Ultimately, you want that idea to blossom into something that'll benefit the game. So not having a publisher, you have that advantage of being able to do so without having to, I guess, worry about a certain level of obstacles that usually are required when you have a publisher to answer to.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine I worked at the other company I worked at. We're a big publisher, and I just saw the type of restrictions and the type of goals and milestones that were laid down on them, and I just thought sometimes, looking at this company, it must be freeing to know that the only people we have to meet these milestones, the only milestones we have to hit, the only people we have to prove it to are the people who actually paid for it.
Well, not only that, you get to pursue projects of passion, and which this clearly is a project of passion. So fortunately, because we're an independent organization, we have the ability to really invest a lot of that passion into our product, garner a lot of feedback from our player base and our backers. And not only that, but value the input that comes from all the players themselves, or all the employees themselves. It's interesting to sit in on brainstorming sessions and just seeing how many ideas come out, being able to distill those down into what's realistic, and then kind of plot those out on the timeline and when we can implement them. The other advantage of not working with a publisher is things move incredibly fast. Whereas at other companies, a particular feature may take months to a year to fully develop. And from there, they have to look at, is that something that is viable within the marketplace? Is that something that's going to garner more players, less players? Where here, we still have those same concerns, but we have the ability to mobilize that a lot faster.
Yeah, we can pivot real quick.
And we do.
Yeah, a lot. And going back to your thing of the input, where I just think back to the thread about what are we going to call the FPS module, and it's like 30 things long of people just throwing names out there. It's like a huge brainstorming session just in an email thread. And it's like, this doesn't happen in other places. Like, It's just really cool. By the way, you had a really cool name, and we're not going to spoil it here, but... Alright, we have one more question. Are you aware that your name makes you sound like a supervillain? Do you work for Dr. Doom?
As I steeple my fingers. The name Darien is actually Persian, even though I think I have a little bit of Persian blood in me. Vorlik is a Czechoslovakian last name, but I'm part Japanese. Interesting story. On another game...
Do you have an interesting Dr. Doom story?
Not Dr. Doom.
Okay.
But on another game that I worked on, I wanted to see if I can get my name in the game as one of the monsters. Darien doesn't sound especially fierce or threatening. Vorlik doesn't exactly sound especially threatening. So what they did was they combined the two names, D Vorlik, and added an E to it somewhere and a U in there, so it became Devourlik. So there are monsters in the game called the Devourlik.
That's awesome.
So that's sometimes what I've gone by. My friends will call me that once in a while.
Devourlik.
But I don't think I've ever gotten Dr. Doom.
Now you have. Welcome to Star Citizen. Well, Darien, thanks for coming on.
You got it. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, and back to you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that's about it for the show. We're going to leave you with an art sneak peek as always. This is one that backers have been looking forward to for a while. We just got this hot off the shotgun system from the UK. Check it out.
That's pretty cool. I actually think you gave me a sneak peek of the sneak peek earlier.
I did, and I hope backers are happy with this. It's one they've been waiting for.
Next week's show, we'll be interviewing Zane Bien, finally.
Yes, recent LA transplant Zane Bien. He's just moved out here to Santa Monica recently. We're really happy to have him here with us.
We are, and we're happy to have some of his furniture and goods out of our office because it came here temporarily. I'm like, what is that? He's like, that'd be my shoes. I'm like, okay. Well, that's it for this week, guys.
We want to thank subscribers for making this show possible, and Star Citizen's backers for making Star Citizen in general possible. So thank you.
Yep, thank you, and we'll see you next week on Around the Verse. Did we do it together?
I think we did. Thanks, Mark. Keep them smashed.
That has to go in there.
That can be our end credits one.